Finals has turned me into a mere shell of a person, evidenced by the fact that the number of espresso shots I've consumed this week outnumbers the hours of sleep I've gotten. But it's okay, because there's lots of sports to talk about, and I only have to put up with Tyler for 2 more episodes. Hello, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. It's Spotify rap season, and I know what you're thinking. Oh my God, we don't care about your music choice, stop posting about it. But to that I say, you all go and post on your stories on social media, that's cute. I'm gonna do it on a TV show. So throw it up there, let's look at it. So number 1, I got SportsLine intro, you're listening to it right now, obviously it's fire. SportsLine outro fell to number 2, only reason is because it usually means it's the end of the show. The Explorer Fight song, obviously it's a classic, Tom Gola, Brother Jerry getting through that. Bone to Pick, he's an underground artist, it's the EP by Angus the Explorer. And then the 5th one's more personal, I want to talk about that. You're watching Lasalle TV's home for Explorer Athletics, SportsLine.
Welcome to SportsLine. I don't know if you heard it all, but LaSalle's basketball teams played at the Palestra this past week. Lucky for us, those aren't even the only games we have to talk about. We have all your recaps coming up very soon.
And later, we're going to take it to the pool to talk about some of the standouts from a gold-ridden Thanksgiving break for the team.
But first, let's take a look at our SportsLine top 3.
Number 1. LaSalle University Athletics program ranked first among all NCAA Division I schools in the annual Graduation Success Rate Report, which was released today. The Explorers are tied for the top spot in the nation with a near-perfect score of 99 percentile and was matched by other elite academic institutions like Columbia, Dartmouth, Duke, Harvard, Holy Cross, Lafayette, and Yale. A total of 11 teams registered perfect scores, which was the highest mark of all Atlantic 10 schools. Those programs were men's and women's basketball, cross country, track and field, soccer, rowing, men's golf, field hockey, women's swimming, and women's rowing.
Number 2, LaSalle swimming and diving senior Ann Moser was named the NovaCare Student Athlete of the Week last week. After picking up her 3rd individual award of the year, Moser was a key contributor to the busy swimming and diving schedule, competing 4 of the 5 days. She showed no signs of fatigue, especially in the 1,500 freestyle. And the week prior to Moser's NovaCare recognition, Sarah Rosetta was named the NovaCare Student Athlete of the Week during Thanksgiving break. Rosetta broke 2 school records in 2 consecutive days in the 200 and 400 intermediate. Both the records she broke were already held by herself.
And number 3. After being named to the Atlantic 10 All-Conference and All-Rookie team in her first season as an Explorer, freshman Sophia Pla has now been named to the NFHCA and Atlantic Region's 2nd team. She is the first Explorer to be recognized for the award since 2013, when Olivia Shoemaker landed on the same team.
So pretty big week for LaSalle Athletics. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised by the ranking. I didn't realize that we were up at 99 with, Columbia, Yale, all those other colleges. So that's really exciting for the student part of the student athlete title.
Especially to see such a spread in the sports that were kind of considered for that award. I mean, men's and women's basketball are top programs here very recognizably, but also being able to get it done when it matters most, everyone graduating throughout that program. Same thing with some of the top performance in terms of like cross country, track and field, stuff like that. They get it done in the classroom alongside having these trips like we'll talk about in a little bit, going down to Tallahassee for the NCAA championship. It's a really, really prestigious honor.
Yeah, and you look at, people like Ann Moser, Sarah Rosetta, Sophia Pla, they're getting all of these amazing individual awards and they're contributing so much to their teams, but to see that they're also getting it done in the classroom just goes to show that LaSalle's a great program if you really do want to do the academic side and the athletic side. Yeah,
and certainly we'll get to the swimming aspect, and Sarah Rosetta just continuously breaking her own record time after time. She gets 2 more over the Thanksgiving break, recognizing all the fatigue that goes into that one.
Yeah, that's a pretty amazing accomplishment by her, but that's it for top 3. Now let's see how our teams did in this week's recaps. Men's basketball took on Army West Point on November 20th, and it was immediately obvious that this game would be a competitive one. LaSalle was able to establish a narrow 5-point lead early in the first half, but a 6-0 run from the Black Knights put them just ahead 18-17. Khalil Brantley made sure to put an end to that, making a layup for his 8th point of the game, marking a career best. Brantley was joined by Josh Nickelberry and Sharif Kenny to give the Explorers a 12-4 run and send them into halftime ahead 31-29. This lead grew to 42-34 in the second half, but Army started slowly closing in, eventually cutting the advantage down to just 56-54. An offensive rebound from Clifton Moore found the hands of Jameer Brickus, and the blue and gold were able to make their lead a little more comfortable. The Black Knights weren't able to fight back, and the Explorers took the 61-58 victory. Then, on Sunday, it was the much-anticipated face-off against Villanova at the Palestra. Neither team started the game too hot, but the Wildcats were able to find a 9-0 run, courtesy of Colin Gillespie. Khalil Brantley then stepped up once again to halt an opposition run, showing off a mid-range jumper over the Wildcats' defense, being responsible for the Explorers' first 12 points of the game. Villanova would then break out into a 21-0 run, taking a 42-17 lead into halftime. Jameer Brickus and Sharif Kenny would score 15 out of Lasalle's 17 points early in the second half. The Explorers would go on a 25-24 run, still trailing 66-42. Brantley sank a three-pointer to tie his career high for game points with the final basket of the game. It was a hard-fought battle, but Lasalle would fall to Nova 72-46. Unfortunately, things didn't get much better as the Big Five festivities continued at Temple. Clifton Moore and Sharif Kenny got the Explorers off to a good start, but Temple would respond with 7 straight points. Kenny and Jack Clark would try to get the offense going again, but a 9-0 run from the Owls put them ahead 23-9. Moore disrupted Temple's 11-0 run, cutting the lead to 11 points. However, the Owls would extend their lead back up to 17 for a 39-22 scoreline. The advantage would tick up to 52-31, and the Explorers couldn't find their footing as they walked away with a 73-57 loss.
Women's basketball had themselves quite a Thanksgiving week, going 3-1 over their past 4 games. First, Lasalle took care of business at Tom Goal Arena against Niagara University, 83-71. They shot a season-high 44.6% from the floor for their highest scoring game of the year, led by Jordan Lewis with 16 points and Claire Jacobs and Kayla Sproul with 15 apiece. They would carry their offensive production to another home contest against Lafayette, winning 73-51 in a blowout. Sproul became the first Explorer to surpass a 20-point game in a single game, scoring 21 to go alongside 9 rebounds. Jay Haynes dropped 13 and Amy Jacobs scored 11 to go alongside the senior forward. The winning streak would come to a close against number 20 Kentucky, losing 52-74. Amy Jacobs would be the only Explorer to surpass double digits, dropping 10 points in the loss. And finally, the blue and gold would snap back into reality, holding on against a Big Five opponent, Penn, with a score of 63-49. Sproul jumped right back to form as well with 17 points, alongside Molly Massantonio and Kenya Coat-Listis, scoring 9 points apiece.
Men and women's cross country competed at the NCAA Regionals this past weekend. The men's team ran their hearts out and were able to land a top 10 spot out of 26 competing teams. The team as a whole averaged a time of 31 minutes and 51 seconds, finishing with 211 points and a 7th place finish. Fifth-year student Ryan James led the pack for the blue and gold. He was the first to cross the finish line for the team and recorded an average mile time of just over 5 minutes. His stellar performance earned him all-region honors. Junior Tayanga Mbambo started the race with a steady pace, clocking in with a speedy time of 4 minutes and 55 seconds for the first 1-mile split, finishing the race in 30th place. On the women's side, the Explorers finished 13th out of 27 teams, tallying 349 total points and an average time of 22 minutes and 9 seconds. The Mancini Sisters, as usual, brought all the heat in this race. Twins Elle and Liz Mancini both earned all-region honors for their performance and finished in the top 20, with Liz in 12th place and Elle in 20th. To complete the trio of Mancini sisters on the team, junior Christine Mancini finished in the top 100 with a time of just over 14 minutes to land the 76th spot.
Men's and women's swimming and diving concluded a busy back-to-back between Bucknell Invite and a head-to-head matchup against Villanova. For the women, Sarah Rosetta was the star for the blue and gold at Bucknell, breaking 2 school records in 2 consecutive days in the 200 and 400 intermediate. Phoebe Shea took home gold in the 1 meter and notched 2nd place in the 3 meter dive, and Ann Moser placed 6th in the 1650 freestyle. Then again, Villanova, Moser was the top performer, pacing the place in the 1,000-yard freestyle. Rosero also took home victory in the 200 free, and Iris Fowler took gold in the 50-meter backstroke. For the men's side, the duo of Steven Sensola and Sam Henninger took 2nd and 3rd respectively in both the 1 and 3 meter dives. The team of Zachary Wolbert, Zach Miller, Alex Kuryawa, and Trenton Burr placed 9th in the 800 freestyle. Wolbert also took 3rd in the 200 butterfly before leading Bucknell to a one-day affair against Villanova. Jason Gonzalez was in the winning ways against the Wildcats, winning the 50 backstroke alongside Caleb Ingram, who took gold in the 50-yard butterfly.
So men's basketball, I want to start with that because they played some pretty, formidable opponents. Obviously, the game against Villanova was the big talking point this weekend. And I really want to highlight Khalil Brantley in that game because he was solely responsible for the Explorers' first 12 points of that game. And he ended the game, the top scorer, with 17 points. And for a freshman who's very new to the team, he's already shown so much that he's a great player, but to be the top scorer against Villanova is especially impressive. And then going against Temple, another Big Five opponent, Sharif Kenny dropped 22 points. So it's interesting to see how they had these really great individual performances, but against Nova and Temple, they lost by a lot, a concerning amount. Villanova, you kind of expect that, but Temple's been struggling this season, so I think that we would have hoped that Lasalle would have done better against them, but the fact that they lost by as much as they did is really concerning.
It's an identity crisis for this team, and when you really look into the numbers, you can get yourself swayed either way. I mean, Brantley has been a key factor because he had that high-scoring affair, and now he's averaging the fourth most on the team, 7.8 points per game. And it's not just because of that fluke 17-point affair, because he also has two other games where he scored double-digit numbers. So he's obviously someone that could be instilled in the offense. But besides that, it's just been a mixed bag of nobody knowing who's going to be the one to step up. And for good programs that can kind of facilitate the ball as well as, for example, a Villanova can, because for that game they had four separate players that scored in double digits. Nobody really took over individually. LaSalle can't do that because they need to know who is their main guy. And so far it's been Sharif Kenny this year, 10.8 points per game. But if your leading scorer is only scoring 10.8, that means it's not a reliable force. And nobody else on the team is willing to step up and be the leading scorer.
No, not at all. And they could really take a page out of the women's basketball book because Kayla Spurl has been on fire in these past few games. She shared top scoring against Niagara with Claire Jacobs, and it's really nice to see the Jacobs sisters really getting up there with the points again. We were talking about that last episode. But then against Lafayette, she dropped 21 points. Then Kentucky, it was Amy and Jay Haynes that kind of got on the top two spots. And then Penn, it was all Kayla Spurl, again, 17 points. So it's really great to see that she's continuing her kind of breakout season, and it wasn't just, the beginning luck that she had. But yeah, the women's basketball had a really good run, and the fact that they did have so many individual point scores, but, they all were very close in points, so they all were kind of getting up there where they needed to be, I think is where the men's team should also strive to be as well.
Exactly, because you get Jane Haynes, who's been probably the biggest surprise offensively for the women's side. She's averaging 11.1 per game, just behind Sproul. And obviously, when you have that secondary force where you don't realize where you're going to get the points from because she's taking over for Claire Jacobs, who has been playing a little bit better over the stretch. Her field goal percentage is up 4%, but it's still 25% from the field, 32% from three. That's definitely something that they need to figure out, because I was wrong when I first judged this team, thinking that they were going to be solely led by their outside perimeter attack, Molly Massantonio. She still needs to step up, but this has completely flipped the script, and now the top two scorers are also their top two rebound getters, because Kayla Sproul is averaging a double-double right now. Haynes right behind her, 5 rebounds a game. That is nothing to scoff at. And Mountain McGilvery has done a great job of realizing the talent that he has on this team comes from within, and they can utilize the paint play and utilize the post play, and that's been their key factor for going 3-1 over the last 4.
Exactly. And, basketball can be a bit frustrating to talk about, especially now. But, we want to highlight cross country too, the NCAA regionals. There were a lot of great performances there. The Mancini sisters, we're talking about them again. Who would have thought? But no, it's great to see that they're still up there. The men getting the top 10 finish was also amazing. Recording mile times of like 5 minutes, I don't know how they do it, but it's still just an amazing thing to see that, one of our consistently good teams is still, finishing the year strong.
And thankfully for us, they're going to be right back in the spring season.
Yeah, they really don't get a break.
We're going to take one more quick break, but when we come back, Siobhan and I will go through this week's Hot Take segment with a bit of a holiday twist. Stick around.
People join Walk MS to raise awareness and funds that change the world for everyone affected by multiple sclerosis. MS attacks the brain and spinal cord. It's the most common neurological disease leading to disability in young adults. Walk MS brings communities together, creating teams with friends, loved ones, and coworkers to rally around those we care about and end MS forever. Join us. Together we are stronger. Walk MS fundraising accelerates research breakthroughs and life-changing breakthroughs. It will take all of our passion, determination, and fundraising to end MS forever. Together, we can change the world for people with MS. Join us. Register today, start a team, and raise funds at walkms.org.
MS does suck.
MS mucks with your central nervous system. Almost everything about your body, your muscles, your organs, your ability to speak, your ability to understand, your ability to move.
MS took everything from me, everything I thought was important, everything I valued.
I used to jump in a trampoline and swim with the kids.
MS has affected me being a mom because I'm sorry.
Despite MS, I will keep riding my bike.
I will continue to be the strongest mom that I possibly can.
I will still dance with my husband.
I will continue to live the life that my daughter expects me to live.
Multiple sclerosis may be a part of who you are, but it doesn't define you.
I will never stop. I will never quit.
I'm gonna keep being me.
Welcome back. As we flip the calendar to the final month of the year, it's important to get your Christmas list in early so the big man can get to work, especially when you're asking for big ticket items like Siobhan and I. So, Siobhan, for this week's Hot Take segment, we wanted to do something a little bit more festive. Your Lasalle Explorers Christmas list.
Yes.
What's on the top of it?
I think my big thing has to be for men's basketball specifically. Like we were talking about earlier, they have very individualized performances, and that's great to have those big star standout players, but it's not going to help them win games. It's not going to help them be where they want to be in the A10. So while it's great that they have those standout performers, they need to be a more cohesive team. And I think that we've proven over the past couple seasons that, you know, this is the system they've been working with, and it's not working at all. And whether that come through a coaching change or, you know, Ashley Howard simply just revising his own coaching style or how he brings in players, recruiting, whatever, it needs to change because basketball is a big ticket item at LaSalle, but they're not playing like it. And we really need to do something about that because we can't keep touting, oh, basketball, 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 and then put up the performances that we've been putting up.
I 100% agree. I'll say the number one on my list too. I just want tournament basketball for this team, whether it's a deep run in the Atlantic 10 or just even an NIT berth or obviously making March Madness, because we've seen 2 to 3 teams from the Atlantic 10 on both the men's and women's side reach every year. If they win and show the capabilities, they obviously have a chance. And unfortunately, looks like in my 4 years, I'm not going to see it. But as we look towards the future, it's all about recruiting. I mean, we've seen Nickelberry. He was supposed to be a huge factor for this team coming from a Power 5 school. He comes over. He kind of hasn't been a factor really at all since the opening night. And his numbers are still pretty decently up there. He's averaging over 7 a game. That's nothing to scoff at, but just something along those lines for the men's side. It all comes down to recruiting. It's all about the promises and what you're expecting from this Explorers unit. And then on the women's side, they have, in my opinion, a better chance. And for I don't know how to count for the couple of seasons that we've been here, but I've had more hope for this women's team over the past couple of years than the men's side, whether it's the Jacobs sisters coming in, Kayla Sproul now this year just factually changing her role on the team. I think there's a better possibility for the women's side to at least get some tournament berth and to be playing hopefully into March, but that's just always been my dream as a college student coming to a basketball school.
Honestly, because, you know, basketball is the big sport here, and it's just so heartbreaking to know that we have all these great players and, you know, they put in good performances from time to time, but it's not a consistent effort. And again, whether that's through a coaching change that needs to happen or they need to recruit better or just get a more concrete sense of how they want to play and what kind of team they want to be, because basketball is kind of at the butt of a lot of student jokes, and it's always, oh, LaSalle's the big L, like we lose a lot, we don't do that well, and you need to recognize that and get real with that, because you can't even have your own students on your side. Like, that should be a really good indicator that things need to change. And I know change can be scary for, programs, especially in a small school like this, but if we want to compete and if we want to be a legitimate basketball school, those changes need to happen.
Yeah, and if we're going to see those changes come about on this team, obviously it's easy for us to sit up here and say this needs to be better, that needs to be better, but when it comes to the actual changes in-house, if you can't change your recruiting, because they do have pretty adequate recruits. Obviously, there's some of the bigger names like RJ Diacono, who went over to Villanova. We were hoping to bring in someone like that, or a bigger name from the Philadelphia area. There's a lot of good Philadelphia players, and even if they may not be highly sought after or higher star talent, it's all about the chemistry that you instill early, and I believe that Ash Howard is starting to fill that out as we speak. But when you look at it, I don't mean to be such an old head. The only way that you're going to see better basketball here is if you increase your interior attack, because we are not a shoot the lights out of the stadium team, but right now we are acting like a live or die by the three-point shot team, and that just isn't going to fly for a team that's shooting under 30% from the outside besides 2 players. If you take away pretty much Sharif Kenny, who's been the only real factor out there, and it's the only reason he's averaging above 15 points per game, because he just has a couple of games where he was hitting hot from the outside. You need more of an attack outside, and the easiest way to better your three-point ability is to play inside out, get those inside out three-pointers, and if there's a better attack inside, I think that's the only way that we could see success from these teams.
Yeah, and to go off your point about getting the necessary big names, I don't think that, Ashley Howard needs to put a lot of emphasis on finding the most talented, biggest names, because there's a lot of value in the names that you don't hear a lot about. There's a lot of value in getting those lesser-known players that still have the talent and the drive. So it needs to be something that you really look for a certain kind of player and not just a name that's going to make headlines, because in the end, it doesn't matter how good they are coming out of high school. If they don't fit into the team and they're only there because of star status, it's not going to do anything for anyone. And I don't think that we need to be feeding into that star status anymore. So take some smaller, more humble players, put them in, get that work ethic going, and then I think that we could actually see good results going forward. And we're going to take one last break, but when we come back, we will preview this week's upcoming games.
What if one day you went to that secret place, that spot that only you know about, and instead of what you came for, you found this? What would you do? Would you stop and give it some thought? The truth is, all drug use comes with risk. Before those risks become real, before drugs turn your life upside down, before drugs take their toll on you and your family, know that there is help. You can quit. If you or someone you love is struggling with drug use or prescription drug misuse, call 1-800-662-HELP for 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, or go to samhsa.gov/knowtherisks.
Unlike other health concerns, mental illness is not always easy to see.
Third line, please.
DEPRESSION.
Mental illness doesn't show up on a scale.
Bipolar?
Sorting out a mental health concern is not something to attempt on your own.
Anxiety. I thought so.
Like many health conditions, help for mental illness takes professional diagnosis and treatment. And the sooner you seek treatment, the better.
Look at that. 6,000 steps and PTSD.
If you or a loved one has a mental health concern, don't go it alone. Find out what to do. For 24-hour free and confidential information and treatment referral, call 1-800-662-HELP. Learn more at samhsa.gov/support.
Welcome back. we've got just one last week of SportsLine before the end of the winter semester. So let's take a look at the sporting events that are going to be coming up then.
First, men's swimming will travel to New York to take on NJIT for a head-to-head meet then on Saturday. It is a doubleheader for men's and women's hoops. The men's team will host Holy Cross at 2, followed by a road contest for the women's team at 4 against St. Francis.
The men's side will return to action on Tuesday at 7 against Fairleigh Dickinson at Tom Gola Arena, followed by the Lady Explorers taking on UMass at 6, also at Gola.
So some pretty exciting basketball matchups. I'm sorry, but if the men's team does not win against Holy Cross, then I was saying this earlier before the show started shooting, we might as well just end the season now because that would just be embarrassing.
It's a get-right game. It's a team. This is a team that, we mentioned it, both the women's side taking on Kentucky and the men's side taking on Villanova and then Temple, who we say should not have beaten them by as much of a margin, but they are a team a little bit out of their league. So the fact that they scheduled such a hard schedule because of those Big 5 games, and they mean a little bit more, this Holy Cross should be a much better opportunity to work on some of the things you've been struggling with. The one key takeaway that we can have from this men's team is they weren't turning over the ball nearly as much anymore. Only 12 turnovers per game in the last 3 games. So that's something that they can capitalize and even get that into single digits. Really be careful with the ball and utilize your offense.
Yeah, it's a big game. It's big because it's needed to kind of get that motivation back and to prove to them, hey, you guys can still play well and the season's not lost yet. It's still very early in the season, but it's one of those games where you're expected to win and you should win.
And yeah, for the women's side, you can really just, they had a little bit of a, not a gauntlet, but playing so many road games and playing off schedule as they were last week, being able to come back and continue rolling, because now they're above 500. There's a different sort of walk through in practice when you're above 500. There's a different way that you look at the outlook of the schedule before you get into the conference slate of the season. And I think this women's team, this is a huge run for them to be able to go into Atlantic 10 play with that advantage.
Yeah, and you know, there's a big slate of games happening over the break while we're not here, so they're gonna need that motivation just to go into those games and finish the break strong. And that just about wraps it up for us this week. If you can't make it out to see the Explorer Report, be sure to tune in next week for our coverage. Keep up with this weekend's other sporting events by visiting goexplorers.com. You can also check out the digital edition of the Collegian, which now features SportsLine content.
Also, check us out on Facebook at facebook.com/LaSalleTV and on Instagram at SportsLineLTV. We welcome you to send your thoughts and suggestions there. This week's poll is, who is the true patron of Saint of Christmas? Mariah Carey or Michael Bublé?
It's got to be Michael. Like, I love All I Want for Christmas Is You. I do, but Michael's Christmas album is just chef's kiss.
I agree.
And for our entire SportsLine team, I'm Siobhan Nolan.
And I'm Tyler Small. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you at the game.